Stop for a moment and listen closely, because what I'm about to tell you might sound absurd, but it is the absolute truth. Everything you believe about success and money is wrong. It's not your degree, it's not luck, nor is it your physical effort. It's something that only 1% of the population truly understands and applies, and because of this, they control almost all the money in the world. Now, think with me. What if everything you've been taught about making money is a lie? What if you could completely change your financial life in just a few months? The answer is right in front of you, in an idea. I learned this the hard way. There was a time when I genuinely believed that life was something that happened to me, not something I could create. I had nothing, and no money, no education, no direction. I worked jobs I was ashamed to even mention. I changed tires, cleaned floors, did whatever came my way, and still felt empty. I thought success was reserved for others, for the lucky ones, for those born into better families, for those with a degree on the wall. And then, on an ordinary day, something extraordinary happened. A man handed me a book called Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. At that moment, I didn't know it, but my entire life was about to change. It wasn't the book itself, it was the ideas within it. A single idea, simple yet powerful, made me see what I had never seen before, that the secret wasn't in the circumstances, it was in the way I thought. And that's when everything changed. That idea lit a flame inside me, a certainty I had never felt. It told me I could be, do, and have anything I decided if I truly believed and committed myself to acting. I remember the feeling exactly. It was as if I had discovered a new law of life, one that had always been there, but no one had ever taught me. I started to think differently. I began to believe that a well-nurtured idea could transform reality. And that's exactly what happened. In a short time, I went from earning almost nothing to bringing in the equivalent of more than $175,000 per year. And shortly after, I was earning more than $1 million. And it all started with something anyone has access to, an idea. I didn't get smarter, I didn't go to college, I didn't inherit anything. The only thing that changed was the way I thought. But do you know what most people do? They ignore their own ideas. They bury them alive before even giving them a chance to blossom. How many times have you had a thought, an inspiration, something that made you feel enthusiastic for a moment? And then, right after, your mind said, "But who am I to do this?" Or, "That will never work." How many times have you given up before even trying? This is how most people live, suffocating the ideas that could set them free. And I can tell you with complete conviction, you are not stuck due to a lack of money. You are stuck due to a lack of decision. That's exactly what kept me trapped. I thought I needed resources, connections, luck. But what I really needed was a firm decision, an idea sustained by faith. The idea is the starting point, but it's the decision that transforms it into reality. When I started my first cleaning business, people laughed. I knew absolutely nothing about it. I just had a broom, a bucket, and an idea. And do you know how much I charged? $30 per month to clean one floor. That's what many would consider insignificant. But I didn't see it that way. I saw that opportunity as a seed. I treated that small contract as if it were the beginning of an empire. And it was. Because the energy you put into what you do is what determines what it will become. In a short time, I was cleaning offices in several cities and earning more than I ever imagined. And it all began with a simple internal shift. The idea made me see the world differently. I started to realize that every person has extraordinary ideas daily, but most let them die. They say, "I don't have time, I don't have money, I don't know how." But these excuses are just mental walls built to protect the fear of failure. The problem is that these walls also prevent success from entering. Think about this. When was the last time you had an idea that made your heart beat faster? An idea that seemed impossible, but ignited something within you. And what did you do with it? Did you act? Or did you let fear convince you it wasn't the right time? How many opportunities have you buried that way? Because the truth is, the universe doesn't wait. It rewards movement. I often say that an idea is like a spiritual seed. It holds the potential to create something that doesn't yet exist. But like any seed, if you don't plant it, it dies. When you write your idea down, when you talk about it, when you take the first step, you are planting that seed in the soil of reality. That's how everything begins. If you look at any successful person, you'll realize that everything started with an idea. One that seemed small until someone believed in it enough to transform it into something massive. Walt Disney was fired for lack of imagination before creating his fantasy empire. Steve Jobs started in a garage. Oprah Winfrey was rejected for being unsuitable for television. They had what all of us have: ideas. The difference is that they decided to act on them. And here's the most important point. Ideas are energy, and energy doesn't die. When you ignore an idea, it doesn't disappear. It simply finds another mind willing to act. Have you ever noticed that sometimes you have an idea, and months later, someone comes up with the same concept and succeeds? It's not a coincidence. It's a law. Ideas seek refuge in prepared minds. So what does this mean for you now? It means that perhaps the idea that can transform your life is already there, inside your mind, waiting to be heard. Maybe it seems small, absurd, or out of reach. But what if it's the beginning of everything? What if it's the turning point that will change your story? Grab a piece of paper and write that idea down. It doesn't matter if it seems too big or too simple, just write it. Give it form, because an idea only has power when it's brought into consciousness. This is the first step. That's how it all started for me. I wrote down what I wanted, and even though it seemed impossible, I decided to believe. I didn't expect to know everything, I just started. And that was the moment my life changed. The greatest discovery I made is that you don't need money to start. You need a decision. And that decision begins with an idea. A single idea can free you from all limitation. A single idea can take you to places that today seem unreachable. Because ideas are seeds of power, and the only soil where they can flourish is within your mind. So think, what is the idea you're afraid to follow? Because perhaps that is exactly the key that the 1% of people decided to use, and it is now knocking at your door. For many years, I believed one of the biggest lies the world has ever told, that to achieve success and earn a lot of money, you need to be incredibly intelligent. This belief stayed with me for much of my life, and perhaps it stays with you too. I grew up hearing that success was reserved for geniuses, for those who attended the best schools, for those who got the best grades, for those who had the right connections. And by believing this, I automatically placed myself outside that group. After all, I had dropped out of school early, had no degree, no influence, and barely knew where to begin. But what I discovered, and what changed everything for me, was that success has nothing to do with intelligence, but rather with consciousness. It's the way you think that defines the way you live. Most people are conditioned to believe that those who work harder or have more knowledge are the ones who will prosper. But look around. How many people you know who are incredibly intelligent, educated, hardworking, and yet still live with financial difficulties? And how many others, who perhaps haven't even finished high school, live in abundance, achieving things that many consider unreachable? The difference between these two groups is not in intellectual capacity. It's in what each believes is possible. While one group uses intellect to justify its limits, the other uses mental faith to expand its possibilities. I realized this painfully because, for a long time, I also believed I needed to work harder, strive more, sweat more. I woke up early, worked myself to death, and still ended the month practically in the same place. It was exhausting. I confused movement with progress. But progress doesn't come from physical strength. It comes from mental strength. I remember thinking, if I just work harder, I'll succeed. But I was wrong. I was acting without awareness, without direction, repeating the same patterns day after day. And that's exactly how most people live, in a cycle of hypnotic repetition. They work, pay bills, complain about life, and go back to doing everything the same way the next day, all because they were taught to believe that success comes from effort and not from mental alignment. When I finally understood that the secret wasn't in hard work, but rather in working with the right mindset, everything began to change. I started observing wealthy, successful people, and I noticed something fascinating. They didn't work more than others. They simply thought differently. They didn't see money as something distant, difficult, or limited. They saw money as energy, something that flows, something that is always available. And here's where it gets really interesting. Numerous studies in modern psychology and neuroscience confirm that our beliefs shape our outcomes. Research conducted by Stanford University has shown that individuals with a growth mindset, those who believe they can learn, improve, and develop, are 50% more likely to achieve financial independence than those with a fixed mindset, who believe that things are just the way they are. This means it's not about how much you know, but how much you believe in your power to change. I recall a pivotal moment that changed everything for me. I was listening to a lecture by a man named Bill Gove, and he said something that resonated deeply within me. If you want to be free, you have to be yourself. That statement disarmed me. I realized that for years I had been trying to fit in, trying to appear smarter, more educated, more acceptable. But success doesn't demand that you fit in. It demands that you break free. And on that day, I stopped trying to be what the world expected and started being who I truly was. Many people ask me, but Bob, if it's not intelligence, what is it then? It's awareness. It's the ability to perceive that everything you experience is a reflection of what you think. It's understanding that the results you get in the physical world are merely the manifestation of the images you hold in your mind. If you think of scarcity, you attract scarcity. If you think of abundance, you attract abundance. It's simple, yet powerful. And yet, almost no one does it consciously. How many times have you looked at your bank account and let the number there define what you believed you were capable of achieving? How many times have you wanted to invest, change careers, or start something new but thought, I can't, I don't have enough? That's your paradigm speaking, the mental programming that keeps you bound to the old belief that money is hard to come by, that success is for a select few. And as long as you allow that belief to dictate your decisions, nothing will change. I know people who studied their entire lives but remain stuck in jobs they hate, earning just enough to survive. And I know others who, with courage and vision, have created fortunes. They simply thought differently. Take the case of Richard Branson, the founder of Virgin. He was a student with dyslexia, having failed multiple times. But he possessed something few others do. He saw possibilities where others saw obstacles. He didn't need to be the smartest person in the room. He just needed to believe he could. On the other hand, how many brilliant individuals with very high IQs end up sabotaging themselves because they fear making mistakes, fear trying, fear failure? Great minds trapped by small beliefs. Because success isn't about what you know, it's about what you believe is possible. I learned that money is a reflection of my relationship with the idea of deserving. If I believe money is dirty, that it corrupts, that it is scarce, the universe simply respects my belief and keeps it distant from me. But if I believe money is a form of energy that amplifies who I am, it begins to flow. Everything becomes lighter, more natural. That's why I want to suggest something practical for you now. Grab a piece of paper and write down the strongest belief you hold about money. Write it down without overthinking. Perhaps it's something like, money is hard to earn, or I'm not good with finances, or rich people are selfish. Now look at that sentence and ask, is this an absolute truth? Or is it just something I learned and never questioned? When I did this exercise for the first time, I realized I was carrying beliefs that weren't even my own. They were from my parents, from society, from teachers who taught me to accept mediocrity as normal. And in that moment, I decided something. I would no longer be a hostage to others' ideas. I would create my own truths. And that's when everything began to change. Because when you change the way you think, everything around you changes too. It's not intelligence that opens doors, it's awareness. The awareness that you are the creator of your reality. The awareness that every thought is a seed planted in the field of life. And every seed you plant sooner or later bears fruit. The problem is that most people plant seeds of fear and scarcity and then wonder at the harvest. The truth is simple. Money doesn't change people. It merely amplifies what they already are. If you are generous, it will amplify your generosity. If you are insecure, it will amplify your insecurity. Therefore, before seeking more money, seek a more conscious mind. It took me years to understand that the difference between those who win and those who merely survive lies in their way of thinking. And perhaps now you're realizing that your biggest obstacle was never the world outside. It was the world inside your head. Change that world, and the rest will change by consequence. Because success isn't a game of intelligence, it's a game of awareness. For many years I lived imprisoned within myself, and the prison had no bars, no locks, no walls. It was invisible yet suffocating. Its name was doubt. Doubt was the silent enemy that accompanied me everywhere, at work, in conversations, in opportunities I let slip away. It was always there, whispering in my ear. What if it goes wrong? What if you're not good enough? What if they laugh at you? I believed that whisper, and because I believed, I let many dreams die before they even began. I remember one specific day. I was sitting at the back of an auditorium, watching a man on stage named Bill Gove. He spoke with such conviction, such presence, that he seemed to command the very air in that place. There were 1,000 people there, completely mesmerized by his words. And I, in the back, thought to myself, if I could speak like him, if I had that confidence, my life would be completely different. But immediately, doubt replied, "You'll never achieve that. You weren't born with that gift." That thought froze me. I wanted to stand up and run away, because just imagining being in his place made my hands sweat and my voice tremble. And then Bill said something that pierced my soul. "If you want to be free, you have to be yourself." That paralyzed me. I realized, sitting right there, that I was living a life shaped by the fear of others' judgment. I wasn't me. I was an edited, diminished, acceptable version, created not to bother anyone. And in that moment I realized the price I had been paying. I was breathing, but I wasn't living. The fear of failing, the fear of appearing foolish, the fear of not being enough. That's what keeps people trapped. And the most tragic thing is that most don't even realize it. They call it prudence, common sense, realism, but it's not. It's fear disguised. Doubt is a dream thief, and it's very subtle. It presents itself as logic, but its objective is always the same, to stop you from acting. And remember, you don't have to kill doubt. You just need to act despite it, one step at a time, one act of courage per day. And in a short time, you'll look back and realize that what once paralyzed you now propels you. because doubt only has power over those who choose to listen to it. I've realized something over the years. Most people don't fail due to a lack of knowledge, but due to a lack of repetition. They learn something powerful, feel inspired for a while, but soon everything fades, like a flame dying out from lack of oxygen. How many times have you read a book, watched a video, or attended a seminar and left completely motivated, believing your life would change? And then, after 1 week, everything went back to how it was before. The excitement vanished, old routines returned, and the hope of transformation dissipated. This doesn't happen because the content doesn't work. It happens because knowledge without repetition doesn't transform into awareness. The human brain is an incredible instrument, but it only learns through repetition. That's how we create patterns, habits, and beliefs. If you hear an idea once, it stays in your conscious mind like a fleeting memory. But when you repeat it, it descends into the subconscious, and that's where true transformation happens. The subconscious controls 96% of our daily actions. It's what decides what you do when you're not thinking. And that's why, even after learning something new, you revert to acting as before, because your old programming is still running inside you. I lived this reality. At the beginning of my journey, I read, studied, listened to brilliant people, but the results didn't change. I knew what to do, but I didn't do it. It was frustrating until the day I heard a quote from Earl Nightingale that changed everything. You become what you think about most of the time. That seemed too simple, almost obvious, but I decided to test it. I started listening to the same recordings every day, without fail, in the car, in the shower, before bed. I repeated the same words until they became a part of me. And one day, without realizing it, I started acting differently. It was as if a switch had flipped inside my mind. I stopped forcing changes and started living naturally in accordance with them. I no longer needed to remind myself to think positively. It just happened automatically. I didn't need to convince myself that I was capable. I simply believed. It was as if the new pattern had replaced the old one, and that's when everything began to happen. Science today confirms what I experienced in practice. Neuroscientists have discovered that the brain creates electrical connections every time you repeat a piece of information. The more you repeat something, the stronger that connection becomes, until the behavior is automatic. This is called neuroplasticity. The brain molds itself according to what you repeat. So if you repeat fear, scarcity, and insecurity every day, that's what your brain will reproduce. But if you repeat faith, abundance, and action, it starts to operate on a completely different frequency. That's why I created the habit of conscious repetition. I chose empowering phrases and said them aloud every day. At first it seemed strange, even silly. I would look in the mirror and say, I have the power to create wealth. I am the creator of my reality. Initially it felt like I was lying to myself. But over time, something began to shift. My mind started to believe those words. They stopped being mere affirmations and transformed into convictions. Many people think repeating something positive is just self-help. It's not. It's mental reprogramming. When you repeat a new idea, you're replacing an old pattern. And if you stop to think about it, you already do this naturally, just in a negative way. How many times a day do you tell yourself, I can't, I don't have money, I'm not good enough? And you believe these phrases because you've been repeating them for years. If you can believe in limitation, you can also believe in expansion. The difference is what you choose to repeat. I remember a period when I was completely lost. My business wasn't growing, debts were mounting, and I felt exhausted. One day, I decided I was going to shift my mental focus. I took a notebook and wrote a single sentence. I am prosperous, and everything I do prospers. And for 30 days, I repeated that phrase dozens of times a day. I'd say it while driving, while walking, before sleeping. At first, nothing seemed to change, but little by little, I began to notice something different. I felt calmer, more confident, lighter, and without realizing it, I started making more assertive decisions. Businesses began to appear. Opportunities I hadn't seen before started to emerge. The world hadn't changed, I had. This is the power of repetition. It doesn't just change what you think, it changes who you are. Because what you repeat, you embody. What you embody, you manifest. And what you manifest becomes your life. That's why I always say, you don't become what you wish for, you become what you repeat. Today, I understand that most people live trapped by inherited mental patterns. They repeat the same stories every day. Money is hard to come by. Life is unfair. I never have luck. And these stories become self-fulfilling prophecies. The universe simply responds to the command you give through your mental frequency. If your mind vibrates with scarcity, the universe responds with lack. If it vibrates with gratitude and abundance, it responds with opportunities. Therefore, if you truly want to change, start with something simple. Choose a phrase that represents the future you want to create, and repeat it until it becomes part of your identity. It might seem insignificant now, but this is how you build a new reality. Repeat until you believe, and when you believe, you will act differently, and when you act differently, the results will change. I like to remember that no transformation is instantaneous. Transformation is a process of impregnating your subconscious with new ideas. It's like putting a new song on an old record. At first, the old track still plays. But if you keep insisting, the new recording overlays and erases what was there before. That's how you change a life. And if you want proof of this, look at anyone with lasting success. They all have mental rituals. They repeat affirmations, review goals, visualize results. They don't depend on momentary motivation. They build habits that shape destiny. Steve Jobs would say to himself daily, "Today could be the last day of my life, so I'm going to do what I love." Muhammad Ali would repeat, "I am the greatest," even before he was champion. They understood something many ignore. The brain doesn't distinguish between what is real and what is repeated with emotion. So, start repeating what you want to live, and your brain will work to make it real. Repetition is the link between what you think and what you experience. It's what transforms an idea into identity. You've spent enough time repeating limitations. Now it's time to repeat possibilities. Choose what you want to be and repeat it until it becomes impossible to doubt. Because the day you truly believe will be the day everything around you starts to move in the direction of your new reality. What you've just heard might seem simple, but it's exactly what separates those who only dream from those who truly transform their own lives. The most powerful truth that exists is that nothing changes until you change what you repeat within your mind. It's not knowledge that creates wealth, it's consistency. It's what you feed every single day with thought, emotion, and action. Every word you say to yourself, every idea you choose to reinforce is shaping your future at this very moment. And when you understand this deeply, you will realize that you have the power to completely rewrite your story. Now, if this resonated with you, don't stop here. The next video appearing on your screen is your next step on the journey of wisdom, the next step to becoming 1% better than you are now. I thank you for being with me this far, and I'll see you there, because that's where everything starts to become even clearer. Go ahead. Click now and continue this transformation.